So since the last HMI inspection, a significant amount of work has gone on within the protection department to ensure that we are an integral part of the safety plan for Hertfordshire, and that safety plan is reflective of current risk and risks that we may face in the future. One of the biggest pieces of work we've undertaken is around definition of risk for commercial buildings. We've categorised each commercial building type into risk categories of high, medium and low. We've attached to that then a process of audit, competency for the officer that audits or inspects those premises, our response to unwanted fire signals for each of those building types, and we've also added our recommendations for the installation of fire sprinkler systems by risk type. All watch commanders have had this input, as have station liaison officers. So if you did want to know some more about this and some more detail around it and have a look at those risk categories, speak to your watch commander or one of the station liaison officers, and they'll be able to bring you up to date with that very important piece of work. In terms of our highest risk buildings, as defined by the Building Risk Review at government level, are our high risk residential buildings. These are our residential buildings that are 11 metres and over. Every one of those buildings within Hertfordshire's county borders has been audited over the last 18 months, and that audit process concluded towards the end of last year. Once the buildings were audited, the information has been passed to response crews and the site-specific risk information either updated or created where an SSRI didn't already exist for that building. This is a really important piece of work in terms of our crews knowing, should they go to an incident at a high-risk residential building, the information that they need, and that will be available through SEED on their MDTs. The last phase of this piece of work will be with our colleagues in the prevention department around the person-centred risk assessment of the people, and particularly the most vulnerable people that are living in those buildings, and how we can get to them and ensure their safety in the future. Through our programme of audits of our high-risk residential buildings, we have found a number of deficiencies in a number of those high-rise buildings. Fire protection staff are working with the responsible persons at each of those buildings to ensure that a programme of works is in place and that progress is being made towards remedying any of those deficiencies. Some of those buildings have come under what we term interim measures. So there may be a waking watch in place, there might be extra evacuation procedures put in place, particularly there may be a simultaneous evacuation process in place for that premises. These interim measures are extra control measures to make sure people are safe while the remediation work is carried out at those premises. This information is available to crews. It's available through our briefing notes system, and I remind everybody that when you receive briefing notes on your station, please make sure you're fully aware of the content of that briefing note, because that is the information that we're supplying to you to ensure that you're ready to respond to that building with regard to what has taken place whilst the works are carried out. So in terms of processing this vast amount of information that we've gathered with regard to our high-risk residential buildings, this is where our new SEED system will come into operation. The process is ongoing as we speak, of all the old SSRI information being passed across and embedded into the new SEED system, along with all the information that we've gathered around our high-risk residential buildings. That system, once populated, will then be the front end for the system that you will receive your messaging on your MDTs should you have an incident. That information will be available to you at the incident ground through your MDT. It's most important that you're aware of that information prior to an incident, so we urge all crews to ensure that they're fully versed on the information with regard to their high-risk residential buildings on their station grounds and close neighbouring station grounds. All of these SSRIs and all of our existing SSRIs will be populated into the SEED system, and as part of the process of ensuring that that information is correct and remains correct for the future, all SSRI properties will be subject to an RBIP inspection every year. We ask crews to engage with their SLOs and a partnership for those inspections so that you have the fire protection knowledge you need for some of those more complex buildings, but at the same time gathering the information that you need should you require it at an operational incident. The Unwanted Fire Signals Working Group, made up of staff from across different departments of the service, been working together now for some time on a plan to reduce the number of AFAs that we have to respond to as a service each year. The first part of our work has been focused around response to AFAs at commercial buildings, and we've been piloting the non-attendance at office and retail premises. That pilot has been going well. It's due to conclude in July. The second part of our work has been around domestic premises. And what we found when we looked at particularly those domestic premises that were generating unwanted fire signals on a regular basis, they weren't single private dwellings, but rather sheltered or warden assisted housing type premises. So what we've decided to do as a pilot is to work with the responsible persons at these premises, much as we do with commercial premises, to try and find a strategy with them, their alarm companies, their fire risk assessors, the station commander and the station liaison officer as a team to get to the bottom of why these AFAs are being generated and how we can restrict the number of them through a planned activity. We ask that for commercial and domestic premises that crews remain conversant with those premises on their grounds that do continue to generate large amounts of AFAs, and to work with your SLO, with your station commander as a team, with the owners, responsible persons at those buildings, and do everything that we can to reduce the number of AFAs that we receive and free up that time for more vital activity, particularly training.